What if I told you that what happened at the Singapore Grand Prix was not a simple mechanical failure? What if Hamilton was more than a brake problem? Today I tell you the complete story with facts, rumors, contradictions, and a possible network of internal corruption at Ferrari that threatens to change everything. The 2025 Singapore Grand Prix was set to be a key race for Ferrari. After a difficult start to the season, the Marina Bay night offered one of the few opportunities for the Italian team to demonstrate technical solidity on an urban layout that has historically punished improvisation. But what happened that night surpassed any script planned by Ferrari, by the media, and even by the protagonists themselves. From the first laps, something didn't fit. Lewis Hamilton, who started with the hope of putting together a solid performance, began to lose pace at a level that could not be explained by strategy alone. On lap 3, engineers detected an anomaly in the left front brake. The telemetry showed a progressive decrease in pressure in the hydraulic circuit, something that forced the implementation of emergency measures such as lift and coast, an energy-saving technique that involves lifting the foot off the accelerator long before each braking to reduce the temperature of the system. But even that was not enough. As the laps progressed, Hamilton's car became increasingly unstable. The British could no longer fight positions. I was simply trying to reach the goal. At the same time, Charles Leclerc was also facing problems, although in his case the deterioration started from the rear axle. Ferrari was not dealing with a one-off failure. He was dealing with a systemic collapse of his technical package on one of the most demanding routes on the calendar. The atmosphere became tense. On the radio, Fernando Alonso, who was riding behind Hamilton, sent a devastating message: "You can't race without brakes. It's crazy." From the Ferrari wall, the response was as cold as it was disconcerting. The car was safe because Hamilton had reduced the pace by more than 30 seconds per lap, which, according to the team, guaranteed that there was no risk of an accident. But that statement only fueled the controversy. The situation officially erupted when the FIA penalized Hamilton with 5 seconds for exceeding the track limits without a sufficiently valid justification. The team did not appeal, neither in the technical hearing nor in subsequent statements. And that opened a new front. Why didn't Ferrari defend its star driver more forcefully? Why such passivity in the face of a sanction that, according to many experts, should have at least been debated? Frédéric Vasseur's official response was diplomatic, but with a latent emotional charge. He defined the result as mega frustrating and dismissed the value of Hamilton's fastest lap at the end, claiming that it was achieved thanks to a mismatch in compounds. But behind that technical language, something deeper was hidden: an internal fracture. A loss of trust, or worse still, a conflict that was not purely sporting. And it was in that context where social networks, specialized forums, and some independent media began to light the fuse of the scandal. There was talk of sabotage, of alleged internal orders to harm Hamilton, of a confrontation between Vasseur and technical director Enrico Cardile, of deliberately uncorrected sensor failures, and even of technical espionage among track engineers. All without concrete evidence, but with enough noise that the fire could not be put out easily. The most shocking thing is that neither Ferrari nor Vasseur flatly denied these rumors. They simply said that there was no official evidence of corruption, but never used categorical language. And that, in the era of hyperinformation and leaks, is equivalent to leaving the door open. Meanwhile, Hamilton remained in a surprisingly composed posture. Instead of attacking the team, he used his networks to talk about resilience, unity, and how true tests reveal the character of the team. His words were not simple motivational phrases. They were a strategy, a message to the paddock, to the fans, to Maranello. Because what happened in Singapore was much more than a failed race. It was a turning point, a moment in which Ferrari was exposed, not only due to its technical problems, but also due to internal management that is beginning to show dangerous cracks. And the most disturbing thing of all is that no one, not even the protagonists, can say whether we have already seen the end of the scandal, or just the beginning. Ferrari is a name that evokes tradition, prestige, and passion. But also, at certain times, it has been involved in the shadow of its own internal decisions. What happened after the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix was not simply a technical crisis. It was the spark that lit a fire of suspicion that still burns silently in the corridors of Maranello today. Officially, there is not a single document confirming corruption. There is no formal complaint or public investigation by the FIA. But what exists is just as powerful. A sum of silences, contained gestures, and calculated omissions that, in the context of modern Formula One, have their own meaning. The information was first filtered through alternative channels: engineering forums, paddock insider blogs, and later in specialized media. Several reports began to coincide in an unofficial but persistent narrative, a possible internal war at Ferrari, a fracture between the coaching staff and the sports management. And in the center, a name that resonates strongly, Frédéric Vasseur. The pieces began to fit together slowly but precisely. First, the revelation that the SF-25 presented setup inconsistencies that did not correspond to the information that the pilots received in the simulator. Then, rumors of alterations in telemetry parameters during free practices. Data that supposedly did not coincide between the sessions of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, generating inexplicable differences in the performance of both cars with almost identical specifications. Several technicians whose identity remains protected for obvious reasons would have warned their superiors about anomalies in the temperature and brake pressure sensors. But these alerts supposedly did not escalate to Vasseur's level before qualifying Saturday. That is, there was a chain of command that failed. Or that someone wanted it to fail. Is this enough to talk about sabotage? No. But it is more than enough to talk about hidden intentions. Especially when one of the cars affected is that of Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari's most high-profile signing in 2 decades, and a global symbol whose arrival generated internal tensions among traditionalist sectors of the team. Not everyone wanted Lewis to lead the new era. And that, according to some analysts, could have created the perfect breeding ground for silent resistance from within. The most disturbing trigger was the alleged heated argument between Vasseur and Diego Tognanelli, head of track operations, after the race. According to unconfirmed versions, Tognanelli would have questioned technical management decisions made without his direct knowledge, while Vasseur would have accused him of critical omission in the communication of key SF-25 data. This alleged internal dispute is one of the elements that most fuels the theory of covert sabotage. Hamilton, for his part, maintains a discourse of unity. He has not accused anyone. He hasn't asked for heads. But he has sent clear messages. On social networks and in interviews he has spoken of renewing the internal culture, of building a team that works with values, not with egos. This rebirth, however, is no guarantee of anything. Ferrari continues to be a team on the limit. The media, political and sports pressure continues to be fierce. And the recent past still weighs. But at least now they have a foundation to build on. A connection between driver and management that can become the cornerstone of an unexpected season. Hamilton doesn't need words. His return to China already said it all. Neither did Vasseur. His recent decisions speak for him. The question now is how long they can sustain this alliance. Because if they manage to maintain cohesion, we could be at the beginning of an era, and not from a fall. Officially, there is no evidence. The FIA has not issued any statement and neither Ferrari nor Hamilton have reported anything specific. But the technical pattern is clear. The SF-25 suffers chronically on urban routes. Brake imbalance, extreme sensitivity to the asphalt, temperatures that easily get out of control, and an aerodynamic package that does not adapt. Now that we have gone through this complex web of events, statements, technical errors, and silent strategic moves, one question remains without a clear answer. A question that resonates in the pits, in the private meetings at Maranello, in the engineers' analyses, and also in the minds of millions of fans. Was it really just a coincidence? Or is there something deeper in the way SF-25 collapsed in Singapore? Was it a chain of technical errors aggravated by the pressure of a demanding car, poorly adapted to an urban layout, with critical thermal conditions? Or was it the visible symptom of an internal power struggle within Ferrari that goes beyond what we see on the track? What do you think really happened in Singapore? Was there sabotage? Was it all the product of disorganized management? Or are we simply projecting ghosts where there are only technical imperfections? Leave it in the comments.